Hello and welcome to today's Battletech review. Today we're going to be looking at the Charger 2C. Well, that's what some people call the Gargoyle / Man O'War because of its movement profile and the fact that it's not as threatening as it looks. The Gargoyle is one of those classic clan invasion era mech, even though it's a pretty old machine, but the Inner Sphere saw it first in that period, and it's been around the Inner Sphere and around our parts for ever since, basically. We've got two different body kits here for it. As an older machine, you're going to see a number of different body kits for it, but the base performance is going to remain about the same, which is a little bit lackluster, but we'll get into it. The Gargoyle is a second-generation omnimech based off Clan Wolf's first in-house omnimech, which was the Woodsman, which is an heavy all-rounder design that you might start seeing floating around because they started rebuilding a few of those for some reason. It's not a terrible machine. It has a mask so it can reach 86 kilometers per hour in a straight line. It's decently armor and armed depending on the configuration, and you get 27 tons of pod space, which is a little bit tight on its chassis, but still not terrible. The Woodsman, however, led to the creation of the second-generation design by Clan Wolf. The extremely popular Timberwolf, which has now variants and variants of variants with new designs, the Artillery Support Unit Naga, and the Assault Gargoyle. While the Naga is also 80 tons, people actually remember the Gargoyle because that's the one people actually saw. The Naga was generally hiding in the back shooting Aero 4 missiles, so when the Gargoyle showed up, well, people called it the Man O'War because it was fairly fast and had a nice broadside, I guess. I'm not quite sure. That's a weird name to call a regular mech, I would say. People were scared of a big mech going pretty fast, and it was comparable to the Charger, which was never really seen as a threat before, as an 80-ton mech that went to that particular speed of 86 kilometers per hour or so. The Charger generally has 5 pop guns, 5 small lasers. That's the common version of it, while the Gargoyle has more firepower and could be very well armed if people were smart about it. And it can still, move next to you and give you a nice solid kick, even though clan warriors generally try not to do that. A nice advantage of the Gargoyle as well was the fact that it could lug around elementals and drop them on objectives to keep them secure, which is an advantage all omnimechs have, but on an assault mech with decent armor, decent bulk, it starts being a nice double threat. For an 80-ton machine to go 86 kilometers per hour, you need a 400 rated fusion engine. Well, you could go with an ICE, but I don't think it would fit on that mech. And the Gargoyle uses an XL engine to save on weight in that particular situation. It also requires a 4-ton gyro. Some people don't take that into consideration. Larger gyro assemblies like this are sometimes harder to source. That's the engineer in me talking. It uses a standard chassis, not endo steel. Well, most mechs in that particular second generation would have used it. Well, then again, if you look at things like the Summoner, you have to look at all the mechs individually. But it uses 11 tons of ferrofibrous armor, which gives it decent protection when the speed is not enough to save it. 11 tons of clan ferrofibrous will give you a very nice amount of armor overall compared to at least a Charger. But compared to other 80-ton machines, it might look a little bit light. Really, you have to always think when you're designing a mech, well, what are you willing to sacrifice to do X, Y, and Z? Here, they decided to sacrifice a little bit on the armor and a little bit on the weaponry in order to make it go fast. You've got 21.5 tons of pod space, about a quarter of the machine's weight, which is not that much on an 80-ton machine, but you will be able to go decently fast, and 11 tons of clan ferrofibrous is half decent, so it's not entirely terrible, just very tight as far as the machine goes. The Gargoyle also has 16 double heat sinks built into the engine, so running hot in a Gargoyle is going to be fairly difficult. But the problem is a lot of the configuration do not take advantage of those heat sinks. The design was popular enough, however, that it was the clan mech in Comstar's Technical Readout 3050 at the 80-ton range. It was also famously piloted by the Khan of the Wolves, Ulrich Kerensky, who then became Ilkhan and then died a ignominious death. Nowadays, though, it is more closely associated with Clan Ellsworth because they are the one actually building the darn thing in the inner sphere on Tamar. Before we get into it, I do have to warn you that there are 16 configurations that we are going to be looking at now, and those are the 16 standard ones that have been in use throughout the history of the Gargoyle. You will notice that most of them have the majority of their weapons mounted in the arms because they are especially stabilized and the gyro is meant to compensate for anything they do, so you have better accuracy overall with the weapons in arms. Now, are all of those basic configurations good? Well, that's another question altogether. I will say that the Prime is not a good example of a decent Gargoyle. The Prime starts with a pair of 5-class LBX autocannons in the arms so you can shoot both clusters and slug rounds, and a pair of 6-tube SRMs so you can murder tanks at your leisure. You also have a moral support ER small laser in the center torso, which is a thing, I guess. This is definitely not a heavily armed 80-ton mech. It's better than your Charger, but it's not a massive threat either. The recent upgrade of that configuration is now Tango configuration, which comes out fairly often if you look at the list of Gargoyles out there. This one uses Protomech AC-8s instead of the LB5X, which gives you more damage but less range. You get 2 tons of reload, so you're going to have generally 1 set of standard round and 1 set of armor-piercing round or precision rounds, depending on what the pilot needs at the time. Backing this up is a pair of Streak 6-tube SRM with 2 tons of ammo, which is a much better setup because those are going to be far more accurate. You do lose on the ability to use specialty ammo in the SRMs, but really in this case, probably for the best. And you still get your very critical emotional support ER small laser in the center torso. Going back to more original designs, we're going to look at the 2 big gun hunters, which were fairly common during Operation Revival. Bravo configuration packed a Gauss rifle with 2 tons of reload as its main gun, and this was backed by an LRM-10 and a 4-tube SRM with Artemis 4 guidance in the other side. A little bit of an odd duck, I would say. You're going to run out of ammo fairly quickly, but it's decently functional. Charlie, on the other hand, is meant to knife fight with an Ultra AC-20 and 6 ER medium lasers, so half a Nova, basically. You also add 3 anti-personal pod to defend you against infantry, but honestly, take those out, increase ammo by 50% and keep just 1, or put that emotional support ER small laser back on, or you could even add a heat sink. Anti-personal pods are not very useful in most situations, so this one here, that's probably the only problem I have with it, because as far as guns go, this is going to deal a massive amount of damage really quickly because you're going to be able to get in range with your Gargoyle. There's a few good ones, of course. Alpha configuration is rather fantastic because it has a pair of ERPPCs giving you massive range damage, and you've got enough heat sinks to run and shoot both of them without any issues. To back this up, you even have a large pulse laser, a medium pulse laser, and an ER medium laser with your emotional ER small laser sticking around. Of course, if you start shooting everything, you're going to boil yourself alive, but if you control what you're firing or, bracket fire, it's going to work really fine. Configuration Delta uses a targeting computer for far more precise fire, and this is tied to a pair of ER large lasers and your emotional support ER small laser. The 3 medium pulse lasers you also have on there gain on the accuracy from the targeting computer, but you can't use them to pinpoint dissect something because of how pulse lasers work. You do get 4 extra heat sinks on this one as well to help out with the heat curve. Both of those, I think, are rather fantastic. Echo configuration came out in the 3060s, and it uses as much new tech as it could. The main weapon on it is a massive ATM-12 with 3 tons of ammo, so you have one of each, and a Streak SRM-6 to help you out at even closer range. Your other weapons are tied to a targeting computer. It's because they're not very intensive either, at least not in terms of weight. You get 4 heavy or improved heavy, depending on when you get the machine, medium lasers, allowing you to disable just about anything that gets too close to it. It will boil you alive, but, it works. And rather than an emotional support ER small laser, you get 2 emotional support ER micro lasers instead. Much better for your mental health. Digging into it, though, Echo configuration should have been the Otel configuration, and Otel configuration should have been the Echo configuration, because Otel is generally going to be seen as the heavy laser boat, but in this case, the only heavy laser on the Otel configuration is a heavy large laser, or improved heavy large laser, once again. The other 2 lasers on there are ER medium lasers, very basic ones, with a 10 rack LRM for long-range support and an Ultra AC-10s to punch holes in people's armor. Is it a bad setup? Not really. You're going to run OT with that heavy large lasers. You always do. And maybe the 10 rack LRM is not the best thing ever, but it is functional in the end. Boxr configuration is a bit all over the place, with the right arm carrying an improved heavy large laser and 2 3-tube ATMs with 2 tons of ammo, so you're probably going to be running standard and high explosive because the extended range ammos might not fit the bill there. To support this, you also have a rotary 2-class autocannon in the other arm with 2 tons of ammo, so you can shoot at your heart's content. For emotional support, once again, you have something here, but it's a heavy flamer with 1 ton of fuel, so it's going to be going to have that burning feeling of emotions there. Juliet configuration, on the other hand, is something else. Not something good, but something else. You get 7 improved jump jets, so you can vault 210 meters in the air while taking up 14 tons of your pod space. For weapons, I hope you like getting into people's face, because you get 4 improved heavy medium lasers and 7 ER small lasers. You're fast enough to make it count, but really, you're investing way too much into mobility here. I don't think this one is worth the time. Golf configuration is not terrible, it's just a little bit odd. Your main gun is a 20 class LBX autocannon, so it is a big gun configuration with 3 tons of round, so you can mix clusters and slug, being a tank begunifier in the end. Against infantry, you get 3 anti-personnel Gauss rifle, which are probably some of the best gun on the market for that particular purpose, and 4 ER medium lasers and a brace on the left arm for maximum damage. This one, I think, is quite functional. You're fast enough to bring all of those weapons to bear. You're tough enough to stick around with him. It is one of those things where you can easily select this one and go to town with it. Configuration Malthus, Mike, is another big gun hunter, but in this case, it uses more modern technology. The big gun here is an AG-20 with 3 tons of reload. Some people might actually say that it's not that big of a gun because as a spread weapon, it might not have as much punch as some of the others, but on average, it deals very good damage, and it does make you a very good bird hunter. This gun is backed up by an ER PPC, giving you even better long-range punch. The left torso mounts a 6-tube SRM, but in this case, rather than one single 6-tube, it's 3 times 2 tubes. Don't ask me why the basic setup is meant like that. I've seen plenty of people link all of those together. It's probably a matter of choice. Killer configuration is built around the hatchet and a supercharger, giving you a speed of 106 kilometers per hour or so in a straight line for short bursts. So basically, the way you use this particular gargoyle is you find someone with your active probe, then you go as fast as you can to get close to it and smash them with your hatchet. It's quite simple, it's quite efficient, and it's rather beautiful when it works. Since that wouldn't be enough, you do get 3 4-tube Streak SRM for a backup and exploiting holes that you made in armor or busting up tanks. And you get 4 improved heavy medium lasers to cut people to shred. I honestly think this is the way you should be using a fast assault mech. Configuration Plasma is built around a pair of plasma cannons with 3 tons of shooting foam, allowing you to cook up infantry, tanks, and shut down other mechs. When they do shut down due to heat, you get 2 large pulse lasers to just cut people apart. For emotional support, they decided to go with a micro-pulse laser in this case, which works perfectly fine. This is a very specialized configuration, mind you, but I do think it works really well. On the other side of the spectrum, India boils the pilot of the mech rather than your opponent. You get an extra heat sink here to help you manage the heat, but it definitely won't be enough because your main weapons are a trio of ER large lasers, which will give you very nice punch at a very decent range. And on the opposite arm, you get 2 improved heavy large lasers in a case 2 housing so they don't blow up on you, to just dissect people once they get closer. This is massive damage without any ammo dependencies. It is a very, very smart design, but it's going to run hot even with 17 double heat sinks. But with the speed you get, you can also get very decent positioning. So I don't think this one is bad. I just think people who pilot it need to be very careful as to what they're shooting. Configuration Xray Experimental combines Intersphere technology and clan technology, but that's one that I haven't really seen a whole lot of. This one uses a TSEMP cannon to shut down enemy units with a clean energy burst. And once the guy is down, well, you get an ATM-9 to do a variety of damage to it, and 6 ER medium lasers to just chop it down. You get an emotional support small pulse laser on top of all of that. Not a bad idea. TSEMPs are one of those things that I haven't had the occasion to see very often or use very often. So this one I can't give a clean description on or review on, just because it's one of those things that I haven't messed with enough. In the end, I'm not sold on the Gargoyle. Most configurations feel a little bit lackluster or feel like they're missing something, and 21.5 tons of pod space just doesn't feel enough on a mech on that side of the scale. Clan warriors are not supposed to engage in physical attack on top of it, so the one configuration I find is really nice with the hatchet. You're not supposed to use it if you follow the rules. There's quite a few different things on the Gargoyle that are a bit of an issue there. The fact that it's still in production, though, and the fact that it runs you not that much when you're trying to use them in terms of pricing and drop tonnage value, means that it's going to be used in a variety of situations, and it's easy to just slot a Gargoyle into a formation and set its pod to what you need it to be, just because you have one that is available. So I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day. I thank you very much for listening to me for so long, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.